So I got in a Twitter altercation the other day with this woman who calls herself the profane feminist, I think, goes so far as to accuse me, your humble apologist, of having committed the no true Scotsman fallacy. Can you imagine such a thing? Yeah, I was being persecuted on Twitter yesterday. I was being persecuted for my religious beliefs. I am the persecuted church. I've said in the past and I will say again, I'm the persecuted church. And I was being persecuted on Twitter yesterday for my religious beliefs. Woman goes so far as to accuse me of having committed the no true Scotsman fallacy. Now, I tried to get my fellow Scotsmen to come defend me, showed them the tweets. Ron shows up and he liked my tweet. I swear to God. Thanks, Ron. I like your tweet, Craig. Oh, thanks. You know, Stephanie runs to my rescue. Yeah, little Stephanie runs to my rescue. It's ironic, okay? The woman accused me of having committed the no true Scotsman fallacy, but how she does it was really paradox. She uses the no true Scotsman fallacy against me. She basically says there are terrible people out there, and they practice Christianity to a T. So you don't get to find who is a Christian. Okay, well, apparently you do. Apparently you can commit the no true Scotsman fallacy, except your version of the true Christians are the hypocritical douchebags, the terrible people, and I don't fit. So, I mean, it was ironic. Now, Stephanie shows up and makes a really good point. She said there's only one person on planet Earth who has ever practiced Christianity to a T, and that is Jesus Christ. I said, hallelujah to the Lamb of God. You go, girl, Stephanie. Actually, I would throw in maybe the Apostle Paul, and let's say St. Francis of Assisi, and a couple others. Maybe Jay from England. No. Yeah, he'll get there maybe someday. No, a couple others. Okay, so she made a good point. But the point is, first of all, we should really try to lay to bed this no true Scotsman fallacy reasoning, because it's fallacious reasoning. It really, honest to God, is. You do recognize, if you have used the no true Scotsman fallacy, think this through, because 99 times out of 100 people are using it fallaciously. Irony of ironies. There is a land in the world. There is a nation known as Scotland, correct? Okay, in Scotland, there are a population, there are people who inhabit the land of Scotland, and we call them Scotsmen, correct? Okay, there are defining characteristics of that group of people. And not everybody who says, I'm the Scotsman, is actually shares in the defining characteristics of that group of people. So to illustrate the point, somebody comes along to you, let's call him Francois, and he insists up and down that he's a Scotsman. I assure you, Mr. Craig Reed, I am the true Scotsman. My friends call me Francois. You're a true Scotsman, huh? Yes, I am a Scotsman. You don't really seem like a Scotsman to me. Oh, there you go, using your no true Scotsman fallacy on me. I assure you, Mr. Reed, I, Francois, am in fact a true Scotsman. So you got to run a couple tests on the guy. Oh, yeah? Okay, did you ever see Braveheart? No, I have never seen Braveheart. This movie is abomination. I only watch Jerry Lewis films. Okay. You're starting to be skeptical, right? Well, you really, honest to God, don't seem like a Scotsman to me. I assure you, Mr. Reed, I am a Scotsman in good standing. You are, once again, you are using the no true Scotsman fallacy on me. How dare you use this? You ever want to kill? No, I have never want to kill, but I do eat baguettes. You see the point? He's not a Scotsman. He's trying to pawn himself off as a Scotsman, and he's a Frenchman. As far as I can tell, he's a Frenchman. And he has all the defining characteristics of a Frenchman. So and he's using fallacious reasoning. He's telling me I'm using a fallacy. There are defining characteristics of what constitutes any group under the sun, and that includes Christianity. And anytime somebody says, that person isn't a real Christian, you can say that sometimes. You actually can. You can say that person isn't really a good embodiment of Christianity. That's not a fair representation of the people known as Christians. Atheists do this all the time. The other way, they do. Because everybody kind of knows what's supposed to be a Christian. Forget the public. Forget that you're trying to win a tribal battle, a political battle. I've seen atheists do this all the time. Even someone like Atheist Girl. Even Atheist Girl, I've seen her do this more than once, promise. More than once. How Christian of you. Oh, how Christ-like. Oh, this person here is acting so Christian. I've seen atheists do that a lot. There are probably 4 or 5 people doing it today as we speak. And what do they mean? They mean something, that there are mutually agreed upon common definition of what constitutes Christian behavior, of what constitutes Christ-like or Christian behavior, even in the public realm. And not every behavior under the sun, you can actually have a legitimate conversation about whether this constitutes Christian behavior or not, without committing the no truth gospel fallacy. You really can. You really can. Now, if we're judging it off of, what the Bible actually, I believe the Bible teaches. Now, people may disagree that this is what the Bible teaches. But it depends on how you're trying to have the conversation. Honestly, it does. So the Bible says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. That's from the Apostle Paul. So a defining traits of Christians is supposed to exhibit some type of at least desire to have Christ-like behavior. And everybody kind of understands what that means. It means they should be compassionate, merciful. They should be in the world trying to act more like Jesus Christ than they act like your typical Twitter doofus. And those should be the defining characteristics of Christians. Now, I get it, okay? And I get where she was coming from, too. I had a productive conversation with Drew on the same feed. Why? Because he wasn't trying to be obnoxious and contentious. He kind of offered me, Drew's pretty reasonable, and he offered me an olive branch right from the start. Yeah, well, what she means is in the context of, like, if someone's had a traumatic experience and they feel like they were harmed by religion, you shouldn't immediately pounce in and try to defend your tribe. Okay, I can accept that. So that's how he framed it, and I didn't object to that. Why? Because to object to that would be completely unreasonable. That seems reasonable. So I was like, okay, I can see that. But that wasn't the agenda. See, his agenda is very different. It's really hard for some of the atheists that listen to my videos to understand the behavior of some of the rest and pin it as actual. Like when I start calling them out on how they act, and you guys don't quite get it because you don't act that way. Sometimes you have to be on the receiving end of the behavior to clearly perceive it. Did you hear me? Did you hear me? Think about that. That's a really important observation. I can point out the ways that some of your fellow atheists are acting, and I will take real exception to it, and you'll think it's no big deal. Why? But you're not on the receiving end of it. So it's really hard for you to perceive clearly. You have to be on the receiving end of behavior oftentimes to understand clearly why it's so problematic. Other than that, it doesn't seem so problematic. Like I guarantee you, I only looked at her timeline a little bit. I guarantee you I don't like this person. I guarantee you, I really don't. No, I really don't. This doesn't seem fair. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't. I really doubt I like her. I doubt I'll like anything she has to say. Drew, for the most part, I like almost routinely. But he's not doing the same thing that she's doing. He doesn't have an agenda. And his agenda, or, if he does, he doesn't really. He does in personal interactions. Maybe he does with his videos, but even there, it's more or less fair criticism of Christianity, as far as I'm concerned. He puts out videos criticizing Christianity. I don't wildly object to any of his critiques. Find them mostly within the bounds of reasonable discourse. You can critique Christianity, and I'm not going to take issue with it. If you keep it within the bounds of reasonable discourse, I may even agree with you. It's why you're doing it is really the point. Why are you doing it? What's the actual agenda? And I guarantee you that girl's agenda is I don't approve of, and all the people who followed in her wake, other than Drew, who said things to me, I totally, narcissistic vanity plates. If I had to size them all up in a couple of words, it'd be narcissistic vanity plates. SJW types. SJW types are so full up with their moral vanity, and that's really what their agenda is. Let me pimp out how morally upstanding and upright I am. That is why I'm interacting with you. And they only interact with you if they sense some sort of, vulnerability. So a couple of them pounced on me and tried to pretend that I was saying things that I wasn't in fact saying. First of all, the girl put out a tweet, okay? By definition, that's public, right? You put out a tweet, people are going to comment. It's public forum. Everybody understands this, right? So if somebody comments, and if you involve your tweets like Christians, and Christians start commenting, you don't get to automatically dismiss what they have to say. She doesn't seem to get that. Drew got that immediately. You put out a tweet that says something about Christians. Christians have every right to start publicly commenting on that. And you don't get to automatically dismiss them. Drew didn't try to. He tried to include me in the conversation and, broaden the conversation so that we both could see the same, so that we could both be on the same page. Easy enough to do if that's your goal. If your goal is to actually be part of the solution, try to improve the behaviors of Christians overall, get them to see where they might be in error, or improve the public discourse overall, then he went about it the right way. She took exception to the fact that anybody would and then her followers basically started making really bizarre, I won't go so far as to say wild accusations against me, but really bizarre accusations. I didn't step into an abusive situation, okay? Drew says to me something like, in a situation where somebody has been traumatized, it's probably better to empathize with the person than to immediately defend your tribe. And I said, okay, and that's, yes, said like that, I totally agree with you. Why? Because that's reasonable, and that makes sense. So I said, I agree with you, and then somebody else comes along, well, that's exactly what you did. No, it wasn't what I did. That's what I said, that's my point. Most of the other people had an agenda, and their agenda was really obvious to me. Narcissistic moral vanity plates. Let me pretend that I'm the most moral person in this interaction, and let me pimp out how morally upright I am. That's the whole agenda of the SJW crowd, usually. 99 times out of 100, that's what they're angling for. That's the only reason they're interacting with you, so that they can pimp themselves out as the person with the superior morals and the superior values. It's a total scam. And every single SJW type person runs it to one degree or another. That's why they make everybody else jump through the ideological hoops. Why? Because I don't have to. I'm the moral one. That's the scam that they run all the time. And that's the scam she's running. Promise. Most of her tweets, that's what she's running. And most of the people who are following her, who interact with me, are on that same page. They are. They aren't interested in fairly critiquing Christianity so that Christians improve their behavior. Drew, I honestly think is interested in that. I really do. I really do. I really do. I think that, call me dumb, but I really honestly think that he's interested in fairly critiquing Christianity so that Christians publicly improve their behavior, so that he can more peacefully interact with Christianity as a whole. I honestly think that's at least somewhat of what he's sincerely about. That may be dumb, but that's how I see it. The others, no. They don't care. They don't care what's true. They don't care what... They don't care. They're about pimping out how good and right and true they are in almost every interaction they have. That's how I see it. I really honestly think that's how it is. So, I guess I'm rambling a little about this. Well, I was persecuted. What do you want from me? It was very traumatic for me. Nobody understands how traumatic that was for poor little Craig Reed. That's the problem. So, I guess there's more to say on the subject I'll go into in videos to come. But that is all for now, kids. Mass has ended. Go in peace. Amen.